everybody, I'm back with the Analog Waveguide, and today I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about this patch, which is a sort of tuned percussion, something like a bell or a kettle, or even a steel drum if you tweak it the right way. So as usual, I'm pairing the waveguide with the Joranalogue Collide 4. I'm still feeling that they go quite well together, although I am looking to try out some other combinations. Actually, I want to get a stereo filter. I've been looking a lot, and I haven't really made a decision yet. So if anybody has any good recommendations, let me know. But in the meantime, I've just been going with what's been working for me. Although I am doing things a little bit differently this time. So the key step 37 is off camera playing this sequence you're hearing. It's triggering the contour 1, which is sending a short envelope into the Collide 4. But instead of coming out of the monitor output, the signal's going all the way through and coming out of the X prime plus Y prime sum output on the Collide 4. Now that signal is not going directly into the waveguide, but I have it going into the Konin amplitenuator module. It's on the edge there, you can't see it very well. But basically I'm just attenuating that signal a bit before I go into the X input on the analog waveguide. I find that especially coming out of the Collide 4, the signals are often a little bit hot, so that just helps keep it under control a little bit better. I'm just finding that makes it a little bit easier to adjust the levels so that I don't get too much clipping, because the gain knob on the analog waveguide is a little bit sensitive and it doesn't take turning it up too much before it clips. As I understand it, they are developing new firmware to address that, and so hopefully that'll be out soon. I'm looking forward to trying it. But in the meantime, this is working out pretty well for me to just attenuate that externally before it goes in. So moving on, the X output of the analog waveguide is going into the Y input, and then the Y output is what you're currently hearing right now. And just to be clear, you're hearing the dry signal. I'm not processing it or putting any kind of effects on that. The rotation is at about 80 degrees. It's a little hard to tell exactly. The pitch is linked, and of course I'm sending pitch information from the key step, which is also going into the Collide 4, so that the two pitches move in parallel. But I don't have any of the other links engaged on the waveguide. So as you can see, the feedback on the X is a little bit lower than on the Y, and also the filter frequencies are slightly different. I have an envelope modulating the frequency on the X filter with every note trigger. It has kind of a subtle effect, so let me pull that out so you can hear the difference. I think the sound just is a little bit more natural with it, although you can't really hear it so obviously, but it's kind of like a low-pass gate sort of effect. Rotation is not being modulated, but we can do that to add a little bit more metallic kind of sound there. I can stop the sequence for a second and just play. So the knob positions that I have on the Collide 4, most of them at least, are really fine-tuned to get this sound. Moving some of them, especially the frequency controls, even a little bit, has a really large effect, or can have a really large effect on the way this thing sounds. In fact, I had a version of this patch that I liked a lot, and then I tweaked it too much, and I spent a lot of time trying to get back to it, and I still haven't quite got that original sound. It wasn't that different, but there was just something about the tonality. It was like this kind of like resonant kettle, like imagine banging a kettle with a soft mallet or something. It just had a really nice ring to it, nice decay. And what I have here is not quite the same. So it's like I said before, if you find something you like, you better document it quite well, take some pictures, and just really try to note exactly where those knobs are. So as you can hear, as I've been playing notes a little bit further away from the original notes I was playing, like an octave plus, close to 2 octaves, the sound is changing quite a lot. I'm not sure if perhaps doing something to adjust the scaling of the filter tracking as you're playing up and down the keyboard might help that. I haven't spent a lot of effort trying, but that would be worth looking into. In any case, the sound's pretty nice and useful within around a couple octaves. So let's modulate the rotation. Remember, by default, that jack is normal to the X output. So let me turn that up a bit. That adds a little bit more metallic dissonance. But as you turn it up more, it gets a bit fuzzy, a little bit gnarly. And if you go too much, of course, you start getting that real electric, crackly sound. The best position seems to be roughly in the neighborhood of 2 o'clock here, but do note that depending on the position of the main rotation knob, there may be some different interaction with the modulation. So it might get more easily out of control or less easily. Okay, so that's kind of the essence of the patch, but what I wanted to show also is some modulation I'm going to be doing with the Joranalogue Step 8. So I'm just going to pan up a little bit so you can see it. Although there's not much to show. I just have the sliders kind of staggered a little bit. Just randomly selected a pattern, you know, any kind of pattern would do. So it's accenting different notes, depending on, of course, on what I plug it into. By the way, I'm also applying some glide to that output so that the changes aren't so abrupt. So let's listen to some of the effects that we can get out of this. So for example, I could put this in the Y feedback, which I currently have the attenuator turned down, so this will reduce the feedback on the high steps. So you get some steps that are kind of muted and others that aren't. But there's almost this like pseudo delay effect going on. I don't know if you can hear that. So kind of like that. Or instead of using the actual X output, the normal connection there, we can put this into the rotation. Then we get this kind of a little bit of twanginess, but again, you gotta be really careful that you don't turn that up too much. Or into the center of the filter, so changing the offset for the filter. The filter tracks the oscillator on the Collide 4, and again I have the pitch going in there, but we can change the offset with this. So that now some of the notes are more kind of like, I don't know, what do you even call that? It's a weird like plonky sound. Whereas others still sound kind of a bit more like a metallic kettle or bell or something. Or, so the Collide 4 has through 0 FM here. And that creates this kind of weird like pitch shifting kind of sound. And then playing with the symmetry. Well, let me turn down this rotation modulation for the moment. Now we got a kind of a bassy thing going on here, turning that symmetry down. There's also this exponential FM. Well, that's kind of a similar effect to changing the filter center, I think. But not exactly. Well, actually it is pretty close. Close, but not exactly the same. want to get even crazier, you could do something like resonance, but that's just driving the Collide 4 to kind of self-oscillate, and then that's just carrying on into the waveguide. But maybe by reducing that resonance knob a little bit, then we can control certain steps ring out like that and others don't. Okay, well, I think that gives you some ideas. Obviously, there's a whole lot of variations we could do. Changing the pattern of the sliders on the step 8. Or maybe setting the reset so that the pattern is not exactly the same length, so that there's some kind of cycling there. Lots of possibilities. On the way out here, I'm just going to play a little bit with the filter center and the rotation here. Again, I spent a lot of time getting these in exactly the right spot that I wanted them after, you know, tweaking and deciding, okay, this is the sound that I want to focus on right now. But then I tweaked it, and then it was hard to get back. But now that I've shown basically everything I wanted to, let me just play with those knobs a little bit, and I'll show you what kind of effect they have on the sound of this patch. So for some of these, you know, maybe reducing the feedback a bit as well might be necessary if you don't want the clipping anyway. It's just really amazing how slight changes in the angle can just cause things to go really crazy. And of course, that's just has to do with the mathematics of the rotation, whether that angle, you know, as it rotates around, does it, you know, does it make nice overlapping harmonious patterns, or does it go around and around without really ever reaching the same spot and just creating more noise as it goes? As I said, I kind of have a video in mind to show the mathematics of that and illustrate how that works out, but I'm still working on that idea. Anyway, we're back to about the same angle as I started with. So let me show you this, changing this filter center here. And just slight changes will, you know, emphasize certain frequencies more, and then you're either just getting these little plonks and plucks, but then sometimes you're getting much more dramatic, out of control kind of ringing feedback and things. Okay, well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.